You're listening to The Haunting of Bly Manor After Show by Horror Movie Talk.
Top of the morning to you, and welcome to Horror Movie Talk's special The Haunting of Bly Manor After Show.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. On a normal episode, we would review and discuss one horror movie in detail. For this series of 10 episodes or more, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll probably have to follow up with all the calls we'll be getting.
Yeah. We'll be having an opinionated and accidentally funny discussion on each episode of The Haunting of Bly Manor. Your panel of expert hosts each week are Dr. Bryce Hanson, who... Yeah. Your panel of expert hosts each week are Dr. Bryce Hanson, who holds a PhD in spoopology, and Professor David Day, the foremost expert in scare no-nos. So without further ado, The Haunting of Bly Manor After Show with Horror Movie Talk.
I gotta give props to Maxwell.R.Allen on Instagram for that. That intro music is just, it's a real banger.
Yeah.
And that's the Willow Wally. Or the yeah. Yeah, the Willow Wally.
Willow Wally.
The Willy Wally.
Got a great show today. We're going to be starting out with a brief synopsis before we get into spoilers. These episodes are mostly spoilers. There's not really much you can do
It's
other
an
than...
after show. What are you going to do?
So, in the spoiler section, we'll take a deeper dive into what we liked and hated about the show. There's not much to hate about this show.
No, not really.
Pretty fantastic.
I mean, it's a little slow, and the source material is a little fucked out, but other than that...
Today we'll be talking about Episode 7. Episode 7 starts to weave all the storylines together as Rebecca and Peter are revealed to Danny, and the story of Rebecca's death is told. Finally get that reveal, and we learn of Peter's motivations in the afterlife and how it may have dire consequences for the living.
Yeah.
No surprise there.
No.
No surprise that Peter's like not trustworthy even in death.
Yeah, so it's really this episode was really interesting because we finally get to really kind of learn the mechanics between the kids and Rebecca and Peter. Mm-hmm. And oh man, it's brutal when he's. I mean, we'll get into it, but
yeah,
there's some brutal parts in this, and it's all under extreme duress.
Yeah, this episode really fleshes out the lore, of the show. Before we get into spoilers, just want to mention our website, horrormovietalk.com. There you can find links to all our social media. If you're interested in hearing our movie reviews, we post new episodes every Wednesday. If you're wanting to leave us a voicemail, our number is 682-253-4468. And if you really want to be nice, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/horrormovietalk. But that's enough about us. Let's get into the episode, talk about spoilers. Spoilers! Okay. That's Jamie's accent.
Right.
No,
right, yeah. He-tiddly-doy.
So...
God, it's so racist in here.
Yeah, it's not racist.
Super racist.
They're white.
Against my people.
Yeah. So, we leave off last episode with Danny getting clobbered.
Yeah, you're really getting bonked on the head.
Yeah. Bonk.
Yeah.
Need to have a bongo sound effect.
Oh, yeah.
She wakes up and she's tied up in the basement. In the scene, Peter and Rebecca...
No, not in the basement. She's in the attic.
In the attic?
Yeah.
Basement, attic. It's all the same.
It's all the same thing
It's
to
all the
Bryce.
same to me.
Whatever.
They're both spooky.
Don't let elevation fool you. Elevation's a myth.
So Peter and Rebecca appear to her, and they're kind of talking... Sorry. Oh boy, got a random... So they appear, and we're kind of shown how directly they're connected to Miles and Flora, that they're able to basically jump in at will by touching them, which has been established already.
Yeah,
but also
so
while
let's back this up just a little bit. You jump into a kid by touching them. This is like your textbook definition of bad touch.
Well, we find out in this episode that, yeah. So,
wait, what?
You know how? No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna go into it. No.
People want to know.
No. I'm not
now
gonna go into
people are going to be angry.
So Peter and Rebecca appear to her, and they're basically plotting or just discussing what their plan is.
Yeah.
Which is
and they're not only there for the kids, they're there for most of the time for Danny as well. Danny can see them.
Right. And as they're talking, they kind of drift off into another memory or dream, or they're called off into another memory or dream as they're standing there. And it seems like they can't really control that. Like they keep getting sucked into a different memory.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, so in the same way that the kids don't really have control over themselves when they get touched, the ghosts of Peter and Rebecca are like they have some weird arbitrary rules foisted upon them where, like, there are certain triggers basically. Like if Peter hears a door knocking, then boom, 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 it comes. Like he can't fight off this horrible memory of his mother.
Right. Yeah. So there's that, and we've been shown that with Hannah before in a previous episode of reliving the same interview with Owen.
Yeah.
So we're shown these memories that are sucked into, and Peter's is the new information. His mother knocks at his door, and apparently she's gotten out of prison, I'm assuming.
I think it's a mental, either prison or maybe, it's unclear, but it's not good.
She got out.
Yeah.
And she's basically shaking him down for money.
But not initially. I mean, he feels it initially, but as the audience, you're kind of like, he opens the door and he's like, no. And she's like, what? No. What do you mean no?
Right.
And he's like, oh no, this is happening. My mother's here. And eventually, as the audience, you learn, oh, she's like a real true narcissist who's just using her son to get things, stuff, money.
Yeah. And, insinuating that even if he doesn't have money, he works for someone rich. So, I mean, you have access.
Right.
So
it becomes apparent that Peter is just...
You're not terribly important to me.
He's not important to his mother.
So,
I mean, other than for the money.
Yeah. And then it jumps to memory with Miss Jessel, Hannah, and a police officer. The police officer is interviewing him. I think I jumped the gun and mentioned this on a previous episode. I don't know if they had this on the previous episode or not, but
there was things like this.
Yeah. So the police officer was interviewing Miss Jessel about what she knows about Peter's disappearance.
Yeah, and maybe Hannah was there too. Or
Hannah
not?
was there. Yeah.
Okay.
And, Hannah basically says, like, yeah, this guy's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And Miss Jessel is like, I don't, all I know is that he wanted to take me to America.
Yeah.
And that seemed like not suspicious at all to me. That he fell into a vast sum of money by being a valet.
A valet.
Yeah.
I mean, look at him. Here's the thing.
He could rake in the dough just with like some classy gigolo jobs.
Dude. Okay, I just realized something that I'd never really fleshed it out in my thought process before. But okay. So get this: you roll up to a stoplight and you look over and you see either some good-looking lady or some good-looking man, and they're in a Beamer or a Mercedes or a Porsche or some nice car, and you're like, yes, that makes sense. You go every time. You're like, yeah, she's hot. He's good-looking.
Right.
They're together. They know what's up. But you pull up next to that same Porsche, and there's an ugly person inside, and you go, what's the scale? Like, what? Like, how'd they do this? Like, they're really smart. You go, oh, well, they must be really smart. Or really, it's just they must be really smart.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I think the ratio of good-looking to, like, normal-looking people in luxury cars it feels like, yeah, the people that are in them that I see are, middle-aged guys.
Yeah.
Which, just like, yeah, they must have success and have a lot of money.
Right.
It's like, I don't see a lot of, like, Hollywood gorgeous people driving around in Porsches.
Oh, you don't see pretty women driving around in nice cars? I see that all the time.
Yeah, pretty women, yeah, and you can do the math on that, but like...
But that's exactly what I'm saying. And you don't bat an eye. You're not like, what the fuck? You're like, yes, of course. Look at her. She's gorgeous and she has a Porsche.
Oh, I just always assumed that they're independent, strong, successful women.
I mean, I'm not saying I don't think that either. I'm just saying every time.
I mean, I guess it just shows where both of our minds go.
Yeah, exactly. We're both thinking the same thing. That they're independent, strong, wealthy people. But what I am saying is, if you see an Uggo in there, you're like, what's their game? Like what they got to have something good going on. So this Peter thing, getting a lot of money. Yeah, I wouldn't bat an eye. I'd be like, well, yeah, look at him. He's pretty.
Yeah. Then Miles is talking to Rebecca and tells her that he told the police about what happened to Peter with the monster. If you remember from the previous episode, how Peter got killed is that the lady in the lake came and choked him to death.
Yeah.
And dragged him into the lake.
Yeah. Man, she's just brutal with that trachea grab.
Yeah.
Just like...
Yeah.
Just front of the neck, just crush you.
Right. So she... Miles told the police officer, and of course the police officer took as much credence to the monster story as you'd expect. And Miles also tells Rebecca that Peter is still here and not to worry.
Yeah.
And this is the first kind of revelation to Rebecca that, Peter is a ghost around.
Hey, I have a question about this trope. Why are the kids always right? This is a serious trope, right? Like, kids are always right.
Well, in this case, they have inside knowledge.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't. It's hard for me to think of a movie where there are kids and they're not like more tuned in than the adults.
Yeah, I think it's like a element of innocence and no filter and all that stuff.
Yeah, like E.T.
And let's see. And Rebecca's really affected by Peter's disappearance. It shows the other staff inviting her to kind of hang out, and she's really distancing herself and being kind of cold.
Yeah,
she's
she's clearly in another place. She's not receptive to their invites to like come hang out.
Yeah, and Jamie even encourages her to, get back on track and be a lawyer. To which she's just kind of like, meh.
but I have these kids to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the obvious thing is like, okay, so you met a guy and dated him for a couple months or whatever, and now he's gone. So, like, yeah, it's sad, but
Back on track
now.
Yeah.
And for some reason, she's just super, super affected by it. And this is before Peter appears to her.
Right.
Like, she's just super sad about it. And then
It's almost like this place, this manor, has some sort of gravity to it. Some sort of sadness gravity.
It's like the manor. The manor of the manor.
The manor of the manor.
So Peter appears to Rebecca, and it's a very, like, ghost moment, you know?
Yeah.
Very Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore moment. This whole interaction, and, like, for the next, like, significant portion of the episode, it reminded me of not only Ghost, but also Hellraiser.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Because Peter's, like, up there in the attic. He's, like... You know his intentions aren't great. He's kind of scheming and also kind of using.
Yeah. Oh,
Miss
dude,
Jessel.
that's a hot take, man. Because we just earlier in the summer we reviewed the Hellraiser, and I can't remember the dude from Hellraiser. Do you remember his name?
I don't know.
Yeah. So, but he's trying to like reincorporate his body into like.
And he needs
other
dead bodies.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the first body, like he got like 80% of the way there, but then it also required like 20 more bodies.
20 more bodies per 1% each.
Yeah, it's like I need another like 5 bodies so I can get my pinky nail.
Right. Yeah.
And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I can't taste anything. That's going to require at least 4 or 5 bodies. Either this is Corona or I need 5 or 6 bodies.
Right.
Yeah, this is like, you're right. Bly Manor episode 7 is kind of like Hellraiser Light.
Yeah. He talks with Rebecca and basically tells her that he had to figure out a way to appear to her, and then he wastes no time starting to manipulate her, and he says, what's the one thing, the only thing that would keep me from you, which is implying death. And then he does the spooky hand through hand,
because he unzips his pants and he's like, it's not this.
Yeah,
this isn't keeping me from you. Yeah. This thing, I could reach you from another room. And she's like, what? He's like,
that's kind of a non sequitur.
Never mind.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden Peter's back in her life in ghost form, and he's like really like, all right, we can continue on, like everything's fine, like we'll figure it out.
It'll be okay, kids. Yeah, well, I mean, he's doing what he does best, which is fooling himself and others.
Right. Yeah. And at this point you're like, it's very, if this was the first episode that you saw with Peter, he'd be like, yeah. Like he's
a nice guy.
He seems like a nice guy and genuine. I almost wonder if this scene was like going to be earlier in the show, because it would have been like a really good setup for Peter and Jessel, but it would reveal too much.
Did you by chance notice how thick his accent was? It was so brutal in some parts of this.
Well, you talked about that before. Like, I don't know. It's not.
You're just sitting there with your subtitles going, I don't hear anything because you're not keyed in on it.
Sure, yeah. And then later, Hannah is talking with Rebecca, and which is kind of weird and very dismissive of just saying, oh, well, I mean, I had a friend that says the mourning period is half the length of the relationship. So, I mean, checks her watch. You should be good, right?
Oh, is that what Hannah said?
Yeah.
I don't remember that part, but yeah, that's pretty dismissive, and like, that's not what you would want to say to somebody if you really wanted to turn them on someone else.
But really, if you're Hannah, you'd want like Rebecca to snap out of it and be like, yeah, all right, you realize that he was a manipulative sociopath, right?
Yeah.
And he wasn't ever good for you.
So let's see here. So as far as we can tell, Hannah may be a ghost, right? We think.
No, we're pretty sure Hannah's
Are we
a ghost.
100% sure that Hannah's a ghost at this point?
I mean, she fell down
She
the
fell
well.
down a fucking well, right?
And she appeared at the top of it.
Is she the only good ghost in this house that we know of? Because she seems good. Like,
Yeah.
everything she... First of all, she's appears to everyone all the time.
Right.
Like, she is constantly...
Well,
there.
it talks about that, and it gives the best analogy for that later in the
Yeah, it
episode.
does. Yeah.
It's just like, that's a really good shorthand way of explaining it.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a minute. So Miss Jessel's response to Hannah is not everything has a half-life, which is like a fair thing to say.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let me mourn, bitch.
Yeah.
So, and then Miss Jessel, when she's talking with Peter, she's saying, like, let's still go to the U.S. We can still do all the things. And Peter reveals that he can't leave the property.
He's like, I've been trying to get out of here. To be honest with you, the only reason I'm talking to you is because I can't get out of here.
Right. So then it's a series of events of Peter trying to, like, test out different ways to leave the property.
Yeah.
Including possessing Rebecca and taking a running start towards the property
Yeah,
line.
he clotheslines the girl he loves to try and get out of the property. Yeah, he possesses her, and then they try and run across the what do you call it? The
property
Yeah,
line.
the property line.
And
Threshold.
and while this is all going on, you know, Peter will hear knocking again and get pulled back into the scene with his mother trying to shake him down. And then it's revealed, probably not like right now in the chronology of it, but eventually in the episode it's revealed that, like, this is Peter's kind of living hell to relive this moment, because he says that, you know, the others get to go back to these happy memories with
Their mom or their dad.
moms, a family that they loved, or
Hugs.
or moments that were, you know, happy. And his is-
Formative.
yeah.
Formative moments.
And
And his
his-
formative moment is this.
Yeah. And he explains how, like, you know, he can't go back into his childhood because he implies very heavily that he was molested as a kid by his father, and his mom just stood by.
Yeah. And she keeps saying, your dad would kill you. Your dad would kill you if he knew where you were, or something like
Yeah.
this. And it's like, Jesus Christ. So, which is it? Is he going to molest you or kill you?
Yeah.
Choose one. I guess it could be both.
Right. And then about this point in the episode, I'm asking, why does Peter even want Miss Jessel with him? Like, what? That's the question, because it seems like, oh, you know, we can work this out, like, all this stuff, and then I start getting suspicious of, like, but why, though? Why would he
Well,
care? I mean, because he doesn't actually love her. I mean, that's the thing.
Well,
Like,
no, he might. I mean, okay. So, insofar as a sociopathic narcissist can love someone, and they kind of can. I mean, this may be the most meaningful relationship he's ever had with anyone, and it's weird when you start learning about how narcissists in particular work. It has less to do with necessarily the love for that person and more to do with, like, look, they take care of me, and how would it look if they weren't with me, right?
Right.
So it's kind of more of a reflection of yourself if they leave you than if they were to
Right.
stay. So
So
it's always preferable to. It's a good look for you to have someone who wants to be around you.
And also, it must be a control thing.
Oh yes, it's great to have. Yeah, if you're a sociopath or a narcissist or anything like that, it's great to have somebody around who is just your constant puppet.
Pretty soon, it becomes apparent the reason why Peter's manipulating Miss Jessel and wanting her around, because he talks about, like, oh, you know, we can be together forever. All you got to do is like, just let me in completely.
Yeah.
Because he's already been able to, you know, jump into her body and then put her back in a memory
Yeah.
for a short period of time. But as was set up in episode 2, I think, where they were talking about Legion, that, you know, Miles was asking,
Do you need consent?
do you need consent for a demon to inhabit you? And the answer was yes, even though that wasn't necessarily his experience,
Right.
apparently. But the difference is giving like complete consent and like inviting them in is something very different from just being touched or jumped into.
Yeah, having them be like a temporary controller of your body.
Yeah. So they recite the spell, which they both knew apparently for some apparent reason,
Klaatu, Verada, Niktu, necktie.
and they go, "It's you, it's me, it's us," and that, like, for the next couple episodes is repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big thing. My next point. So Peter jumps into Miss Jessel. This isn't the first time, but he like has complete control now.
Yeah.
And so, all right, sidetrack.
Okay.
All right,
Where are you going?
this really didn't feel realistic to me.
Oh,
At all.
Peter jumping into
Yeah.
Rebecca's body?
Right.
Okay, why is that?
Because the first thing he does is look in a mirror and then go off and try to do, you know, something
Ghosty shit.
ghosty shit.
Yeah.
Or try to leave the property. Like, everyone knows if you were a man inhabiting a girl's body for the first time, like, immediately you would get naked and look at yourself in the mirror and touch your boobs. Right? And then probably masturbate or get someone to have sex with you, just so you could feel it.
Sabrina, don't just stare at it, eat it.
I mean, you know, as
You got a limited amount of time. You're like, all right, I got a lot of questions about all this.
well, I mean, I can kind of help you on this because I have identified as a woman for a long time,
Okay.
and no,
Pre-op,
that's
post-op.
pre.
Okay.
Yeah, hardcore.
So you know completely what it's like.
Yeah. No, and I think the first thing I would do is just enjoy walking, you know, in the skin of a woman. You know, just and having people like recognize me as what I am.
Right.
So, I mean, I think there's some, you know, real cis, you know, pigs out there that would probably do what you're talking about, but not this lady.
So you're thinking that's what Peter's real intention was?
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's a good point.
Was he living a lie?
He was living a lie. He's like, oh, finally, feels good. I like the way satin feels.
I mean, I get it. The draw of women's clothes. I mean, they feel great.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Look,
I wish I could go around wearing satin and lace all the time.
I had to have a discussion with my wife last night. She came in, and I had her underwear on, and she was like, again? I was like, look, we discussed this, and it's strictly a comfort thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just a happy camper. Rocking and a rolling.
And then Peter reveals himself to be the giant dick that we understand he is. And he promptly walks Rebecca into the lake.
Yeah, but why?
Because fuck this shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was seeing if he could kill himself.
I can't remember exactly what I think it was just so she could be with him forever or something, or maybe he couldn't accomplish I can't remember if there was actually a reason for doing that.
I couldn't figure out exactly why.
I think there was, you know what? I think it was like he was tired of being lonely and he wanted someone with him forever.
Oh, that would make sense. Yes. And because later in the episode, he picks up one of the other ghosts around there, and he's like, "You see this bitch without a face? This is what all of us turn into if we get forgotten."
Right.
And so it showed his contempt for all these other ghosts that are just like, and his fear, which is a legit fear, of like turning into that, like this faceless sort of entity.
Yeah, so there was a really cool effect because while Peter's inhabiting Rebecca's body, she's like tucked away in a memory, and like she's drowning physically with Peter inhabiting her. In the memory, she's like sees the water above, by the ceiling. That was
awesome, man.
Yeah, it was a great effect.
Yeah, it was like the room was still the room, but it had like a water line high up. Mm-hmm. It was very cool.
Yeah, and then she realizes too late that Peter just like drowned her,
Yeah.
And and
as she's drowning,
a real dick move.
Yeah, real dick. As she's drowning, she sees him down there. He's sitting at the bottom of the lake, his old dead body, because he had been dragged down there by the lady in the lake.
Right. And
it's a deep lake.
This is like I think this is the coolest thing about the whole series is that it's really told through the perspective of the ghosts. A lot of it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's okay. So, at this point we are kind of given some confirmations here, right? We have some boxes ticked off. So we know Hannah's a ghost. We know that for sure. We also know, obviously, Peter and at this point, Miss Jessel are ghosts. And perhaps the most important pieces of information, we know Danny is a real person, and we know the kids are real people. They're alive. They're kicking.
Right.
Because they need to be used as vessels.
Right.
And the reason they've tied Danny up in this attic, not the basement, is because she knows. Well, now she's seen too much. Because she walked in on Flora and Miss Jessel in the other room the last episode, and she's like, "What the shit is this?" Well, you seen too much. Now we gotta do you in, and so Peter inhabits Miles in order to. He's like, "Well, we gotta off this bitch first of all because she knows too much."
Yeah. So what I was gonna say about the point of view of the ghost is it's kind of cool when you hear ghost stories or whatever. You're like, okay, it's a spooky hotel, and at night this woman ghost will walk the halls.
Yeah, but it's told from a living person's perspective.
They like, just every night, or whenever that you'll see the ghost doing
this or that,
this stuff, or she's crying because of whatever, and it kind of shows you the perspective of the ghost in this show, that they're reliving the same moments over and over again.
Yeah.
And they're kind of helpless to it. Like they can't control it. That's how they keep getting pulled away into a memory. And then it goes into a little more detail, really cements that the next episode. But I thought that's like a really cool perspective to have throughout the show. It's like, it's not just, spooky ghosts are spooky. You mentioned when you walked in that, how did you describe Hill House versus Bly Manor?
Yeah, Hill House is like scares, scary. First of all, a tremendous mood in terms of just having a scary mood, and then a lot of really astonishingly solid, terrifying mechanics at work with a really solid backstory. Whereas this is kind of the reverse. This is a incredibly solid backstory of sadness and melancholy, and then also scares thrown in. There are spooky parts of this, but this is primarily a melancholy, sad tale.
Yeah.
How everyone is dealing with shit.
Yeah, Hill House was also very melancholy, and it was about family and loss and all that.
But this takes that sadness and makes it the front runner.
But really, Hill House kind of slow plays it for a long time, and we're not given a lot of backstory for each ghost. But this one, you literally see it from the ghost's perspective, so it's not as scary to be
right.
To only know of these ghosts as these entities.
Yeah, it's kind of like a ghost soap opera.
Right. Right.
It's like a soap opera for ghosts.
Well, it's pretty interesting. There's in the press materials they sent out for this, there's a statement by Mike Flanagan, and we'll read it later. Maybe not in this episode, but we'll read it in like the summary episode. But kind of gives us thesis for the show and compares Hill House to this one, and it's cemented in the kind of the final episode, like what it's really all about. Which, you know, I don't want to. I mean, it's not really a spoiler, but it's not focused on family as much. Like Hill House is one family's story.
Yeah.
And this is not that.
No, this is a bunch of people's individual stories.
And so I think that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it shows the plan is to inhabit Miles and Flora, and it's really bittersweet because you figure out like how they convinced Miles and Flora is that if you let us in, then you get to just spend all of eternity in your memories of your parents.
Yeah.
You know, you miss your parents and you can be with them
Fucking
forever.
Crushing. That's so sad. And the kids are so bought into it, and they do such a good job of acting.
Yeah.
Like, they crush it. And that is so, like, there's so many things at work in this, because it's like so manipulative and cruel and mean of Peter to do, and it's seemingly of Rebecca, because it's like, you're bought into this, like, you're gonna take this little girl's life. How could you do this?
Right.
And just take advantage of a little kid's kind of innocence and missing their fucking dead parents. Ugh, it's so gross.
Yeah. So. And then there's a moment, you know, after it's revealed that Peter, like, had a real rough childhood. I like the fact that they reveal that, yeah, Peter's background in childhood is horrifying, but it doesn't go to the extent of, like, forgiving Peter for being a sociopath or a dick. It's like, you have sympathy for the child that Peter was, but not who he is.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, there's a point in which, like...
Yeah,
what's it called? Relativism of like expectations. It's like, oh, well, he was, you know, he was created to be a monster, so you have to be understanding of, you know, this is all he knows is being a sociopathic, you know, murderer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
like, no, he's still.
Yeah, it's still huge. Actions are the important thing here. It's Yeah, it's why narcissists are dangerous people to be wound up with.
Yeah. Then there's a moment as he's talking with Miles about, you know, the fact that he has these nice memories to go back to and to have moments with his parents, and he says, and this is an important like line for his character, is, "I wish I could be that rich." Is that up to this time it seems like he's just really greedy and into like class and wealth, and it shows that like what he really wants is just love and relationships that are nurturing and caring.
This is the one line that fleshes Peter out.
Yeah,
this is literally the one line that fleshes Peter out, along with his memory of his mother.
Right. And so he inhabits Miles, and there's a cool thing they do, and they do it later too, which I don't know if you noticed, but like all of a sudden Miles has heterochromia.
Oh, his eyes were different
His
colors?
eyes were different colors.
Were Peter Quint's eyes different colors, or was it just their eyes were different colors, and so he's got a little bit of him, a little bit of him?
I think it might be the latter. Okay. I think it was noticeable because it kind of like really focuses on his eyes. And that's kind of a cool like indicator of like, yeah, someone's inside there. And then
man, the heterochromia thing, I just got to say, 28 months later, or weeks later, I guess it was 28 weeks later, one of the best sequels ever, and focused entirely on heterochromia. Like, this is how you like are resistant to this strain of like rabies. Basically, this zombie rabies is like you something about heterochromia is having two different colored eyes is an indicator for you being resistant to this shit.
So if you want to avoid the zombie apocalypse, become possessed with a ghost.
Or I guess you could, get some colored contacts or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the zombies run up to you and they're like, ugh. Ugh.
Yeah.
Maybe people with heterochromia just really taste bad.
Maybe. I wwonder if you could get
really sour.
Get an eye transplant, Would that work? Or is it a gene thing?
Yeah.
We're scientists.
That's a good question.
Science. How's that work?
So Miles Peter talks to Hannah, and this is the big reveal for Hannah, and this is like the great analogy. And Peter's like got a bone to pick with her. He's like, all right, bitch. I see what you're doing, and I'm putting a stop to that.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, it's really impressive what you're doing. And he's like, it's exactly like a cartoon that I used to watch as a kid.
She's like, but you still are a kid. And he's like, of course I am.
He's like, no, it's Wile E. Coyote. And he says, remember how Wile E. Coyote runs off a cliff and doesn't realize that he's off a cliff and he doesn't fall?
Right.
Until he looks down and he sees.
Hooey.
Yeah, and then he falls down and he's like, all right.
That's you.
You need to be put in your place. Literally he says you need to be put in your place. And he takes her to the well and makes her look down, and she realizes that she's dead.
Yeah.
And can really accept it. And then the question at the end of the episode is, well, okay, so it goes back to Flora and Danny are back in the house while all that is happening.
Yeah, and it seems like at this point Flora has given herself over to Miss Jessel.
Right, because she said the words and whatnot. And then it's revealed that Miss Jessel didn't actually inhabit her.
Yeah.
It was all a trick. It was
meant to trick
Peter into thinking that she did it.
Yes.
And so Jessel actually frees Danny and, says she could never do that to Flora. Flora deserves to live basically her own life. And as this happens all of a sudden, and then they're basically like, what about Miles? And Miss Jessel's like, yeah, it's kind of too late for Miles.
Yeah.
Which is pretty dire.
Yeah.
They're really going there, huh?
But man, it's a really smart move because of the way they casted the two kids. And I'm not saying that the kid it plays Miles is less likable. I'm saying the way he acted throughout this show makes him so much less likable, which is really a tribute to his ability to act.
Right.
And the way Flora was portrayed throughout the whole show is this little shining ray of just innocence and love and light. And it would be the most profound tragedy if Flora got.
Right.
But Miles is Miles is an acceptable sacrifice in order to save his sister. And episode 2 sets that up, I need to protect my sister and I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
So Miss Jessel basically tells Danny to take Flora and get the hell out of Dodge. And so the last scene is Danny grabbing Flora and running down the stairs and out the house and towards the car. And before they can get too far, Danny is chokeholded by the lady in the lake.
Yeah, she gets got.
Oh, fuck. We see where this goes. And that's where it ends the episode.
Yeah.
So now it's a question of oh, great. Now is Danny dead?
Yeah.
And that's left as a cliffhanger. Basically to the end of the next episode.
Yeah.
So
rough stuff.
All right. That's episode 7. It's a great one. Really fleshes it out and makes it... everything is revealed so nicely and everything
it kind of unfolds
builds
like a moonflower.
Yeah, and it makes it richer and characters more interesting and in depth, and it's just really... Man, Mike Flanagan is such a master, and the next episode just is a testament to that.
I worry about this series a little bit. I worry that this will be the last season of of this, because I don't see it being received with the fervor that that Hill House was, because this is not a spook fest. This is a slower, more much more thoughtful and kind of sad show.
I don't know. I mean, I think it'll really hold up. I think one of the
in humanity.
There's the one thing that it has going for it is the iconography of it. Like that, the faceless lady in the lake, that's going to be a thing. Like that's going to be like an iconic image, I think.
Yeah.
Going forward, because that is such a cool character, and the story behind her is really compelling.
Badass. Yeah, it's pretty good.
So, I mean, I see, that's the thing. Like, it's a gothic horror, and it's not like, it's not a ton of jump scares, but the ones that are there are like super effective. And I think it's very effective at giving a haunting feeling and being like a ghost story. And it feels like a really great ghost story.
And not only that, I feel like this is definitely like they found a hard lane, which is kind of, it's almost like a mystery. And I think their audience is probably skews a little female. And so if their audience, if their aim is to like really nail in that female viewership, this season will do that in spades, because it is very dramatic and focuses on relationships.
Yeah. I mean, I think the saving grace of it is like, it's a really emotional story, and it's going to connect with people.
It's beautiful. Yeah. And it's, if you've lost someone, oh man, it resonates.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really resonates.
I mean,
my skin's a-tingling just thinking about this spooky tale.
Is that a raincoat? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, I finished the series now, and I'm really excited to talk about the next 2 episodes.
Okay.
They're really great.
Cool, man.
But yeah, I think it's the same thing with Hill House. Is like, yeah, each episode was good. Each episode was like compelling. It was, rich. It built on each other, and it like explored, more depth of the characters and stuff. But really, the selling point was the end. Like the last like reveals, and the ending is like the capstone of like, this is like a really perfect thing. Yeah, this is like. And I think it does that really well for this series as well.
Like, there are other series on Netflix that don't hold up nearly as well. That Dracula one.
Oh, yeah.
It started so promising. That first episode had me I was fully bought in. And then it just fucking... just took this huge shit all over my face. So
yeah. The other thing is Netflix is kind of notorious for like doing a couple seasons and then dropping it like a bad habit. Mm-hmm. Like they have a lot of like 2-season things.
Oh yeah.
But I think they've actually like have a pretty robust contract with Mike Flanagan.
Sure. And I mean, it's not bad that they drop things, I mean, I like to see new stuff, I like the BBC style, where it's like, okay, let's get some fresh fucking stuff up in here. You've had 2 seasons. That's enough.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Please, if you like it, subscribe and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out. Or share it with a friend to help us grow. Other ways you can help us out is go to our website, horrormovietalk.com. There's a couple buttons in the top banner. One is to send you to Amazon. If you're going to buy anything from Amazon, we'll get a little taste of that. The other one is to our Patreon. You can check out the different tiers and get into that.
Also, check out our resident artist whose name is Dustin Goebel. He's a professional artist who creates some of the best looking horror-themed art that I can think of. So you guys should check him out over at dgoebel00 on Instagram. That's at DGOEBEL00 on Instagram. And tell him HMT sent you.
Thanks again to Max and Kitty for helping us out with the intro to this little series. If you want to leave a voicemail, call us at 682-253-4468. And we'll see you for the next episode. Bye!
Bye!